Hi, everyone. Today's author interview is a particularly unique one in the sense that it talks about what it's like writing a book while also struggling with health concerns. We go over asking for accommodations and the impact health can have on the writing journey. This topic may be difficult for some viewers to engage with, but is hugely important for those who are dealing with similar concerns. I hope this can help you all. Thank you.
Hello. So I'm very excited today to be joined by Michelle J. Michelle is a fantasy author from upstate New York whose writing journey started when she received her first video game, Kingdom Hearts, which is also very near and dear to my heart, so I definitely approve. She learned about storytelling through video games and explored gameplay as and writing as ways to express herself. Her book, The Divide That Binds Us, is out on the 16th of May, 2025, so it's coming up. Make sure you guys go and look for it. Its back of book blurb reads, "In a world dependent on dragons, their sudden deaths plunge Zila into chaos. When 19-year-old Alice Reed is sent to secretly investigate, she becomes a target for a rival paramilitary group led by Commander Rio Shackler. As they clash over the cause of the dragon deaths, they uncover a conspiracy threatening the world's survival. Amidst escalating tensions and a looming threat, Alice and Rio must overcome their differences to save their worlds." So that sounds fascinating. So just to start us off, what inspired you to write this story?
So I, it's just interesting because I've gone through so many different whips in my life. Like I've had so many unfinished stories that I didn't even like go and proceed through. But there's this one anime that I watched. It was called S Cryad. Some people may call it Scryad, but I call it S Cryad because that's literally how the title's broken up as. And I was like, wow, I really like this show, but it didn't correlate initially. Like that was how like my biggest inspiration was going to come from that because I've watched Naruto, I've watched a little bit of Bleach, I've watched a lot of different animes growing up, but as I was developing the story, Alice and Rio weren't their original names. It wasn't originally called The Divide That Binds Us. It was just kind of like I wanted to make a story with a bunch of characters that had special abilities. And originally, like the dragon piece was like I wanted more stories where dragons were good. And, there is a lot of stories where dragons are in their big bad lair and they were the bad guys, which is fine. I do like those stories. I wanted to see more stories where dragons were important and they were, good. And so that's kind of where that weaved in as well into this world and like how much they tied into like their dependency because it's just like, who's killing dragons? Why would they do that? Like the world's dependent on them. They're important, they're good. So that's kind of like how like it all kind of came together. I wanted a story with characters with powers because I really love that concept. And then I wanted to weave dragons into it as well.
So when you're first starting and you're coming up with an idea of people with powers, dragons, do you go for like special ability? Like do the abilities come to mind first? Or what how do you design that type of world?
I don't even remember how I designed it. It was like I think I decided abilities first. I think I just kind of did a hodgepodge of things. Like Rio has lightning abilities, and I'm not sure where I thought that was a good idea because he also had some other things that I got rid of that was not relevant to his abilities. Like he would sweat acid, and I was like, yeah, that's just not what I want. I didn't do anything with it in the story. It didn't serve any purpose, so I got rid of it.
I
And
have
then,
to admit, I'm sorry to interrupt. I'm trying to imagine that you're in the middle of something, like you've gone for a big run, somebody comes over, you're just sweating, like you're burning your friend. That
I'm
poor
sorry.
guy. Like I'm on his behalf. I want to say thank you because I feel like that would be so painful.
I mean, to be fair, like when my publisher was first going through this and they were like, so why doesn't Rio do more with his sweat? Like he can do acid bombs or something. I was like, oh my God, I'm not doing that.
Just
But
smear it off your hand and throw it at
right,
someone.
just like slap someone with it and just burn them immediately. Like it is just terrible. Like just like collecting that, I was like, yeah, no. So I think my younger imagination just thought of like, wow, I want people with powers, but like not it's funny because I don't have anyone who flies or anything like that. I do have a character who can be invisible. And a lot of people had secondary powers too, like, they can mimic someone's powers. Someone is like can control people or hypnotize people with their violin or conjure water with it. I'm
Ooh.
not sure where I got all these like ideas from, but it just kind of just kept going of like, what did I want to see? But I think the character kind of I was like, I love doing these character sheets. I was like, okay, here's a document for this character. And then as I kept weaving in like who they were, then I decided like, oh, this would be a good power for them. And it'd be like the most off the wall thing. And it's just like someone could turn into or had the qualities of a skunk. And I don't know why I did that. I think I just disliked them so much. I was like, you can be a skunk. See, that's what I mean. I didn't have any idea what I was doing.
I have to speak up for the skunks. They're adorable. Um, they are. I'm sorry. They're little cute little faces. I have to speak up for them. Um,
Yeah.
and sometimes, they just don't want to be bothered. Like, if
I
you just
know,
didn't
I
bother the
get
skunks,
it.
they wouldn't, be bothering you
Right.
back.
That is fair. That is totally fair. And I feel like me, I was just like skunks stink and they just are ruthless. And so they are adorable though. Raccoons are a different story. Don't get me started on raccoons. I
The
hate
little
them. They're
washing
scary.
hands
They're
and
so no, no, they're
video where
so
he's like
scary.
melting his cotton candy. Like,
Wait, what?
so raccoons wash their food before they eat them. And so
Oh.
there's somebody gave cotton candy to a raccoon and he brought it over to some water and he put it in the water and it like melted and
Oh,
disappeared and he's
dissolve.
just sitting there patting the water for his cotton candy.
Oh my gosh. I didn't
See,
not
now we're
that.
coming onto the raccoon side a little.
Oh, no,
Things you did
no.
not expect about this interview.
No, listen, I had a dream that a raccoon, I had a dream I was at an Airbnb, don't know why, and the raccoon was chewing through the wall of the Airbnb and through the TV and it bit me. But that's not where my raccoon like hate came from. It came from like I just think I've just always been scared of them and it's just been so when I had that dream I was just like, really? A raccoon in my dream. So,
Well, I
but
can't speak
now
for
I
the
want to
dream
see the
raccoon, but the poor cotton
video.
candy raccoon, he
Okay,
deserved his
cotton
cotton
candy
candy.
raccoon. All right, justice for him.
Okay, justice for him. Okay, sorry.
Yes.
I'm the one to sidetracking us. But no, so you're having these really great ideas for these abilities, and they're not necessarily what people naturally would think of. Like, yeah, invisibility, but you said you didn't use flying, and that's something I think most people are like, I want to fly places. How did
Yeah.
you come up with some of the more like, I mean, you said you weren't quite sure, but like violin and water, that sounds really interesting. Like, what was that type of like crafting process like while you were designing that particular ability?
So in the world, like there are four major deities who oversee like the basic elements, fire, air, water, and earth. So I knew that if everybody was going to have a power because they get their powers from the deities, that they'd have to be tied to a particular element. Not always like right on the nose kind of thing, like the invisibility person. I don't even remember which deity I assigned them to. But like that one, I knew that I wanted them to be water because I feel like in my mind, water just felt as fluid as like playing the violin would be. And I guess it could have been any other element, but I feel like the character itself, as I was like making her and like how she was, like I felt like water was the best one. And so that's kind of how that one tied in. And I feel like that's how a lot of other powers kind of generated. Like Rio has lightning, and there's no lightning deity at all. Like one would speculate and say maybe like, oh, maybe the fire deity gave it to him, but it's actually someone else who did. And I think that that was from more of a character standpoint when I created his powers than like, oh, the deity should be, giving their powers to this person or something like that. So like the violin person, like that one was more specifically tied to the deity, while other people were more specifically tied to their personalities. But like in the story, it's talked about like how people who have special powers have some tied to like maybe it's speculated that like maybe their powers are tied to like what their personality is. So like that also was something that I created as well. Like Alice, the main character, she has like a shield she can generate and along the story, it's not really a spoiler or anything, but someone talks about like, oh, maybe she can pull up a shield because she is more of a defensive person. And so kind of like that, where some people are like, speculated that their powers are tied to like who they may be as a person. And then you have one character who can, classical Greek mythology, there's Medusa, the Gorgon, and like the others. So there is a character who can turn her hair into snakes. And so like she is probably like the last person to do that because she's so, hyper and energetic and also easily like tempted to do it. And so it was just because at first Alice always talks about how much her hair is everywhere, her blonde hair is everywhere. They're roommates, and it's just like you got to get your hair out of my face. Like it's terrible. And I think because of that and tying her personality as well, I was just like, oh yeah, she can petrify people. Her hair can turn into snakes. And that's how her ability came. So it was all like different, I think, thought processes, but kind of like in some specific categories as well.
It sounds really interesting because at least from what I'm understanding is that like it's a really interesting metaphor for beyond the book for like if living in our normal day to life, what
Mhm.
aspects of ourselves, if we had that power, would we start exemplifying? How would we be able to
Uh,
go through our world and actually use that in that way? Like what part of ourselves would be the actual power itself, if I'm
yeah.
understanding correctly?
Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know what power you would have or would hope to have in that
I've been
case?
I've been thinking about it for a while, and I am just not good at like self-identifying powers. Like even when it's like icebreakers at work or something, they're like, "What superpower would you have?" I'm like, I don't know. I think I might just do the cliche and be invisible because it's just easy, and I don't. I could just do my work and no one would know, and just or no one would find me. But I think if I really had to think about it, it'd take me like 5 business years to get a good solid answer because I have no idea. But what
All
about
right.
you?
See, the thing about it is, I know what I would like as far as like a convenience is concerned.
Hmm.
I'd like to just be able to go, okay, teleport, I'm at work, I'm at home, I'm across the world, I can visit my faraway friends. I like time zone's not an issue. Train traveling, plane, I've got this. Boop, there I am. I can sleep in, we're good. But that's not a personality trait. It's just I want to sleep in and I don't want to go to the airport. So I'm not entirely sure.
Oh my gosh, but the convenience is good, like teleporting anywhere. But now you have to think like, can I teleport anywhere with someone, or is there a limit? Is it just me? And then that's where it gets really like tricky, right? Like,
Just abandon my friends at the airport. It's like, bye. See you later.
I'll see you in 5 hours when you land.
Yep. Meanwhile, I'm gonna go sleep again. See you.
Like,
No,
that
I,
could,
I would like genuinely get on the plane with them. That's who my personality would be. I'd be able to teleport, but
aw.
I'd be on the plane with them because I would feel so guilty about not being able to bring them with me.
They're just like, I never see you. Why are you always appearing everywhere?
The commute to work would be much nicer. That one
Oh
I
yeah.
do by myself, but like, yeah. Anyway, um, so when we first scheduled time for this interview, you mentioned that you were particularly interested in discussing what it's like writing while experiencing health issues.
Hmm.
Can you share more about your experiences here and how that influenced your ability to write the story and how the story evolved as a result?
Yeah, so I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety when I was 14. So that was before I ever wrote this book. I wrote a lot of different other stories, but I struggled to make sense of that diagnosis and my life with writing because it is how I can better articulate myself. And that's probably why I didn't have any solid books that I had finished that I wanted to query or even get published because none of the writing that I did really make any sense. So it was a big barrier for me going through high school. And, I didn't really make a lot of friends. I had a lot of peers, but not anyone who was like solid, long lasting. Like I do have one best friend and probably the only person I really talk to more regularly outside of high school. But I also think that that was like the biggest thing with like writing a book. So as I continue growing, like, 4 years later, maybe 3 years later after that diagnosis, I started writing The Divide That Binds Us. And, aside from like, watching the anime that helped inspire me, I think getting down and having the time to process all of that was pretty good because I was able to write the book and then I was like, I don't like the way this is, so I tried to like query it. No, I'm not trying to query. I tried to like revise it before querying it. And I didn't get anywhere. I was still very naive and I didn't know a lot about writing and like grammar and stuff like that. But eventually, like I shelved the book for a while as I was trying to deal with like navigating the episodes I would get, sometimes I'm just not motivated. Sometimes I'm just anxious all the time about things. I started developing a skin picking disorder. So like that eats up a lot of time that I could have been doing like revising. And so like it's mostly on my hands and then I'm like constantly wearing band-aids and like ruining my skin until it's bleeding. So like it was tough trying to get going. Sometimes I wish I had it all figured out when I was younger than, what I am now, but it's fine because I feel like everything that le led up to this moment was like something that helped me grow. And then last year, Last year, well, I got my book deal in November of 2023. And then last year, I was diagnosed with this brain condition called idiopathic intracranial hypertension. So I was having a lot of headaches and, migraines, and my doctors always thought it was something like your birth control is not working anymore. It's because you got your concussion a couple years ago, or it's because of what. But I had a really bad headache. And I remember because I was sitting at brunch with my family on Mother's Day, and I had a really bad headache, and I was just like, and my husband had told me like months ago, like, you should go see the eye doctor because I was having these weird visual distortions in my periphery. And so my appointment was the day after Mother's Day. And that's when they were like, yeah, you should go to the hospital. They did like a lot of testing. And then I was like, what am I going to hospital for? I was supposed to be going to work after this appointment. And so I did. And it was like a very long day. A lot of no poking me, a lot of lights flashing in my eyes, a lot of like, reflex testing. And they're like, you have this condition. And I was like, what does that mean? It means like there's a lot of cerebral spinal fluid built, like I have an overproduction of it, and it's causing a lot of pressure in the back of my eyes and my skull. So because of the pressure on the nerves in the back of my eyes, that's why I was getting the visual distortions. So they had to do a spinal tap and drain out the excess fluid because I mean, it's just going to keep building and building. And they put me on a medication. So, with that diagnosis, it was really hard last year because I constantly was crying and, angry at the world, along with like the medication was a little debilitating because it came with its own side effects. So, it affected a lot of like publishing for me, like, doing revisions and having the energy to post and, market my book. But I mean, it was really tough because mostly like it was such a big life-changing thing. And to be told that it's not curable and that you just have to manage it was like a little soul crushing. Coupled with that, and like, after years of refusing medication for my depression, I had also been on, medication for that. So I would say that helped, but the diagnosis itself really didn't. And I think that was something that I had to navigate while trying to say, hey, I have a book coming out.
Yeah, I can't imagine that was easy.
No.
Um, I think a lot of people don't really think about how difficult the process is, how difficult it is to, especially because I think many writers, not everybody, but many writers tend to be very introverted. And so the idea of going out and
Yeah.
marketing in the first place is already a challenge. It's already
Yeah.
very difficult. But when you couple that with having depression or anxiety, where I'm not sure if this is something that relates to you, but I know for myself, constantly worried about, is this post okay? Is someone going to hate me for this? Have I said this in the wrong way? Um, did I not write this in a way that's going to make people like me? People didn't respond fast enough. Does that mean that I'm terrible? Am I a horrible, like the feedback loop of like a constant
Oh yeah.
anxiety where you're
Hmm.
in a position where you have to put yourself out there, but you also
Yes.
don't want to be perceived.
I
Um,
know.
you just want the art to be appreciated for what it is and not have to be the
Mhm.
one to, be out there doing that. It all builds up. And then when you add on having a physical manifestation of struggle where your cerebral spinal fluid, which is like the last thing you're thinking about of things going wrong in your life, is suddenly like causing trouble. Like it was supposed to be doing something, on its own. That was an automated system. Um,
Yes.
no, it sounds very difficult. And one thing that I wonder about, like while you're doing your revisions, physically, the revisions are difficult. Like you have to stare at a screen for a long time and you have
Hmm.
to reread that same passage over and over and over and over again. It's not a simple process. It's like, here is the text. 4 weeks later, here's the text again. 3 weeks later, here's the text again. 2 weeks later, here's the text again. And you have to constantly reread it. How did you manage to go through all of that? And were there things that you could do to either find ways to accommodate the new health situation that you were in, or how did you deal with that with your publisher? Were they aware of, were they able to give you any assistance?
So one of the first people I did tell, not like only my family and friends, but I did tell my publisher, and they were very accommodating with, the message that I gave them, and understanding that like, hey, I get it. I need more time. Like I need maybe some extensions here and there, or just like not having the energy to like make major decisions on, ideas for things like maybe book covers, or, what do you want to do for your pre-order campaign or anything like that. Like I didn't always get a chance to fully process everything. So like having that safe space to be able to take time to like really understand what's being asked, and like having the time to think about it and respond appropriately was really helpful. And yeah, like you said, reading the text over and over again, I was just like, especially with my eyes, and then it's like, especially like when it's doing the weird distortions and I'm
Yeah.
trying to like manage it, it was really hard because I had to constantly take breaks. I was always tired because the medication is supposed to be helping me, but like taking it so much also caused like this thing called metabolic acidosis. So it's just like too much acid in your blood because of the medication. So like even that, like I'm trying to treat myself because of this condition, but taking it does eventually cause this. So like I have to find a way to manage the balance of acid in my blood. So like that made me extra sleepy, made me sleepy at work. It made me sleepy at home. I just slept a lot of times and like just didn't have the energy to do anything. And I think the biggest help was my publisher was super understanding about it. And I can't speak to anybody else's experience, but that's like a very important thing to have when you have like a severe condition like that, because otherwise, like it will be a struggle to get things done. It will be a struggle to like meet the deadlines, whether it's self-imposed or because, you need to have this done. But the fact that my publisher was just like, we can work around this. We have, extra wiggle room for this, or it's okay. We can always push things around was super helpful. I'm super grateful for that because I really didn't think I'd make it like, all the way to the finish line as tired as I was without like sleeping through most of the process and like having this crap book come out when I tried to put my all into it. So it was really good because like I said, I didn't know if I was going to make it to the finish line awake.
I'm really glad that you did.
Thanks.
I do want to like really echo what you just said though. For any writers out there who are watching, it is so important to talk to your publisher. If anything comes up during your process, it's going to delay you for any reason whatsoever. It's super, super important. I know for myself, I made the horrible decision to write a book during my PhD. And I have been balancing doing doctoral dissertation edits at the same time as doing book edits, and it's been awful. Um,
Oh my
I
gosh.
do not recommend it at all. With the sole caveat, having the extra money when my contract ended was very nice. But that was the sole, shining light in the process. What happened though is I crashed into burnout,
Mhm.
where I had just done too much and I could not physically do more. And edits had come up, and finally was just, I contacted my editor and my agent, and I was like, I need more time. I need more time. I need at least 2 more weeks. I don't know if I can do it at this deadline. I'm crashing out and my mental health is not here right now. I need more time. And they were very accommodating. It's not the same situation, but it is a moment where if you are having trouble, you need to contact your agent, you need to contact your editors, talk to your publisher because they're the ones who can help you. And don't wait until the deadline to contact your
Yeah.
publisher. Talk to them in advance, give them time so that they can arrange things because everything is always calculated. And if you can tell them, I need more time, they can change their own schedules to accommodate, but you need to tell them. And I think that's so important that you've brought that up
Mhm.
because it's it's huge. So future writers, that's the one thing to really take
Yeah.
away.
Absolutely. When I was like looking at my contract and reviewing it, I was like, oh my God, I have to have this done by this date. And then I was like, wait, can I have it done by like, February 1st? And they were like, yeah, that's totally fine. And I was like, thank you. Because like just even a difference of a couple of days like is important. Like, because if
Yeah.
you don't get it, like send it by the due date, but you don't say anything because you're certain you'll have it done, it's just like, you won't. You probably won't. So you might as well say something now. Like even if you're even the slightest bit uncertain, it is so important to say something sooner than later.
Yeah, because I think the same situation. I think I did get my edits done by the original deadline, but knowing I had an extra 2 weeks was
Hmm.
such a relief. Knowing
Yes.
that, like, if the tram stranded me somewhere, if, the work needed something done, like, knowing I had the extra 2 weeks actually took the pressure off or it made that situation easier. Um, and I think it's really important because I think a lot of people they get the contract, especially first time writers, they get the contract like I need to be the shining star that causes no problems. I'm not going to be a squeaky wheel because they're going to want to work with me in the future, and then I'll have the
Yep.
next book and I'll have the reputation of being easy to work with. You can still be easy to work with by managing expectations and
Mhm.
also by asking for reasonable accommodations when you need them. I think
Yeah.
people forget that everyone is human here.
Yes.
And as long as you are communicating, hopefully, I do say this with the caveat that some people are just awful. But hopefully, if you are communicating with your agent, with your publisher in a timely manner, they will be willing to work with you.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
so one of the things that you mentioned was that they gave you more time. Was there anything else during this process that really helped you to be able to feel comfortable with how your writing journey was progressing, or that you were able to do to make the process successfully come to its happy conclusion?
So, with my publishing journey, I had a lot of autonomy with like the decisions I got to make with like, being able to have a voice in, what my cover would look like or what types of swag that I wanted or like, other things like decisions like what kind of book boxes I would be interested in or stuff like that. I thought that was really cool because I know like every publisher is different and because I had a lot of autonomy, I also was like more willing to do the reaching out as well on top of like what, my editor or what my publisher would do. And because of like the diagnosis and everything, and this sapped all of my energy, it was nice leaning on them more and saying like, hey, I don't have this like the energy for this at all, or like, hey, I just I can't do it. And like having them be like a complete like beast in the process and just like being like, no problem. We've already reached out to all these people, so you don't have to, do double work was pretty cool because I would have ideas of people to reach out to or influencers to reach out to, and I would give them that list and they would take it from there and they would have their own list. And I was just like, perfect, because as much as I like the autonomy, it also was a little draining for me because like I like to go balls to the walls pretty much
Yeah.
with things like that because I'm just like, yeah, I want to reach out to everybody. Like I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna
Go,
do
go,
this.
go.
And like, yeah, go, go, go. And like, my publisher probably did like that, but they were also fine with me scaling back and just be like, okay, I can't do it. Can you just take over for me? Because like, I just don't have the energy anymore. And while they were managing all the other authors they have and all the other books and all the other projects they're working on, like they were able to do it with no problem. So it was really good.
Who is your publisher and your editor? Just so we can give them a shout out.
Oh yeah, Midnight Meadow Publishing. They are a smaller press, and my editor is Elizabeth Ashtafel, and I think they're entirely amazing. And I know that if they're watching this, they know that I appreciate them so much, and I want to say thank you.
No, I mean, honestly, from what you're describing, they sound fantastic. So I'm definitely happy that we get to put their name out there and let them know how fantastic they've been able to treat you. That's great. Um, I don't know how many people are aware of this, but during the querying process, there are a lot of questions that authors get asked. Your name, your background, your this, your that. some agents and some editors, not everybody, do ask, do you want to self-identify with any health concerns with this? Are you part of a marginalized community? Stuff like that. Um, you had said you started your publishing journey before you got the most recent diagnosis, but you did struggle with depression and anxiety prior. What were your feelings when it came to should you self-identify in this moment? How did you feel about those types of questions on those submission forms?
Mhm. I was always kind of skeptical because I wasn't really sure what the main intention is, like with self-identifying, like who I am, what my sexual orientation is, because I don't want that to be a deciding factor. And like if someone's interested in me, I want them to be interested in my story. And
Yeah.
while I understand that, like, some publishing professionals probably use that as a way to be more mindful of who they're selecting or, wanting to give those people a safe space to identify that. I don't want that to be like cherry picking, like I'm just looking for, oh, this person is, pansexual. I will, give them a chance. I would want to be given a chance because of my writing, not because of my background or anything like that. And I know some people probably aren't doing that like maliciously or intentionally to be like, I want to know this because I'm going to go through and see who you are and decide from that. Because but I don't also know what they're doing with that information. Like, are you filtering to see what group is most likely like querying you, or like are you just going to make decisions based off of who we are? Because it's it feels more like not for writing purposes, but I know some people want to champion more, people from marginalized communities. And you hope that people aren't maliciously like identifying as such and they're not, but then you do have the bad apples out there. So it's just like how do you still how do you still make this an optional spot to have people identify these things and still make a good judgment call on like whether you want to work with them based off of who they are in their writing. So I always found the like that a little interesting because I'm not sure. I know like it's probably for subjective purposes, but I always just wonder like what exactly are you doing with that information? And is it really for my writing or is it because you want to be like, yeah, I got this Black author I'm championing
Yeah.
right now? Or is it like she's an amazing author and she's also Black kind of thing? I just, it's kind of interesting because I always thought that was, I don't know. I, like I could talk about this for probably a long time and just talk into like a circle, but like I'll never probably get a definite answer on that. Like it is an interesting question or like a space because you are a little cautious about how much to share and if you're just being cherry picked for that reason and not for like a genuine one.
It's difficult because I think it really does depend on the person asking the question.
Yeah.
And you don't know the person asking the question because it's the first time you're interacting is through that checklist.
Yeah.
You don't have a chance to, I've had this lovely conversation with this individual. They sound really great. I'm going to fill out this form, move on. The only thing you get when you're querying is here's the checklist, box, 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 submit your thing. That's all you have. And so
Yeah.
you don't know what the intentionality is behind the person doing it. You don't know if they're leaning towards I'm just trying to fill out this, statistic, or if they're actually genuinely interested, or what that correlates to their opinion on your art is. It's difficult.
It really is difficult because, like you said, all of those reasons, like people are more than welcome if they feel comfortable with sharing, they can. It's just like I always do wonder, like, are you taking care of that information with the best intentions?
Yeah.
Like, I don't want to be a checkbox of your statistic of like, how many authors you have on your belt. Like, really try to get to know me for like who I am. And, people can disclose their disabilities, their illnesses, their background, their race, their ethnicity. And I think that if they're comfortable with doing that, yes, absolutely. I just hope that people aren't disqualifying people for that reason and, you know, giving people the actual chance they deserve.
We have a very fascinating craft that we're all involved with, where it
Yes.
can be so personal, it can be so dependent on who we are as people, where we're writing about our own personal experiences, our characters take on our depression, they take on our racial profile, our experiences in sexuality and all that stuff. And so I can understand people like, well, is this your lived experience? Are you writing from this background?
Mhm.
But also there's that danger. Do you want to be that person to be like, well, here's my list of everything, and as such, I am the spokesperson, and go from there? Because it's so personal, it's going to be different for everybody. It's not going to always be the same, and so it's definitely a tricky situation.
It just reminded me of something that someone asked me when I was in college, and it was someone who lived in my building. She didn't like she was my roommate, but she was like a suite mate of mine, and she did ask me like, "Do black people like trees?" And I was like,
Wait,
"What?"
what?
It's like just because I'm black, I'm the spokesperson. Like, what?
Do all black people like tree like
I was like, I was
what?
like, um, I don't know. Maybe I like trees. I just wonder sometimes, like,
Jeez.
where was this person like growing up that they thought that was like the question that they wanted to ask me, and she wasn't mean about it, but she wasn't, I don't think, really considerate of how the question came off. So I just thought it was interesting. But you saying like, right, checking off these boxes, I'm no spokesperson, like it just reminded me of that because yeah, some people will look for if people are writing in the space that they are identifying with or know well about. Like if you are writing about, a chronic illness, is that something that you identify with? Like personally. And that is another reason in like, I just hope that is something that, people are looking for or, thinking of considerably. But I also don't want people to not be selected if they choose not to talk about it. Like job applications always want to have you self-identify, like, do you have a disability? And there's that long list, at least over here, like there's this long list of disabilities that you could choose from. And then like it's a non-exhaustive list. And then they want to know what your race is. Are you Hispanic or not Hispanic? And it's just like I always try to opt out of those. Like, what does that matter? It's just to help with your statistics of like, did you hire, this quota of people? And it's just like, I just stop filling those out. I skip them if I can because I'm just like, I don't want you to make a decision on if I have a disability or not. Or I don't want to be part of your number of like, yes, this company did hire 70% more disabled people or not. I'm not going to tell you if I don't want to.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel like somehow publishing in a way like reminds me of that, like the job applications, because it's just like, are you this like prototype of someone we're looking for, like whatever that may be, and like you have to tell us what you identify as. And I feel like if you're going to use it in a mindful way, then fine, but people shouldn't be required to disclose that if they don't want to. But if they're being malicious about it, definitely call them out.
I think it's also the connection between the two is important because publishing is a job at the end of the day. If you're gonna go through the trad pub route, and even if you do like make it really successful with indie or self-publishing, if you're trying to make money it is a job. And so having that form and having the similarity, you can see where those similarities
Yeah.
kind of show up in that place because it's how these people are um, employing authors, how people are getting involved in the industry. And so when you're looking at it, it's another reminder that this is a job that you're engaging in.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, Speaking of it being a job, have you received any advice on while you're writing of how you could manage your publishing journey better, specifically because you had depression or anxiety, or even afterwards, were you given any suggestions on how you could make your writing easier after you had your most recent diagnosis? Or were you just kind of figuring it out as you went along?
I've been trying to figure it out as I've gone along. My not only is my like editor super accommodating and always wants me to take care of myself, my job has also been pretty supportive as well. And I have a really amazing team of people that when I first got my diagnosis, I was in the hospital for a couple of days because of all the testing and everything. And I wasn't able to do anything. I was just sitting in the hospital trying to figure out what to do. What can I do? I mean, I could read a bunch of stuff on my phone, but
Yeah.
like having the advice, like, my boss was very amazing and just like, don't worry about work. It's okay. We can take care of things from here. my publisher and editor, is just like, don't worry about things here, take care of yourself. That's most important. And I feel like that's the thing that I would tell people too. Like, don't try not to burn yourself out. I'm the pot that calls kettle black, basically. Like I will burn myself out because that's just what I do. No matter what, I'll stack my plate up. And my husband will be like, you do not have time for that. And I'm like, I definitely don't, and I'm gonna do it. And I would say figuring it out was the best thing I could do because people could give me advice all they want, but I mean, if I whether I listen to it or not, I'd have to learn my own lesson anyway. And the lesson I've learned is that I need to slow down. Have I been slowing down? Yes and no. But I
Depends
mean,
on the day.
depends on the day, yeah. But if anything, like I if I can't put in the energy to write and work on that, I try to put my energy, whatever I have, elsewhere. I will love to write and read at the same time. I can't do it. I just can't. It's impossible for me. But what I can do is split it. I can split my days up. I can split my week up. I always feel like I have a list of things I want to do and I have to achieve it all in a day instead of trying to split everything up and achieve it at least in a week. What does my week look like this week? What does this day look like? And it also works for me at my job because I try to get as many things done in a day. And I'm like, you know what? That's a Friday problem. I am not doing that today. I've learned to say like things are X, Y, and Z problem. It is a next week problem. It is a next month problem. I'm not like procrastinating or not dealing with it, but I don't have the time or energy to deal with it in that moment. So if something is like I can't get to it today or that day, I would try to make a plan to like get to it another day and actually achieve it without turning it into outright procrastination. So that was another thing that I've learned along the way as well, along with, taking care of myself when I'm not actively trying to burn myself out. But I can't, it's a struggle.
Yeah. Um, I can see that.
Yeah.
I have no leg to stand on in this conversation. I can understand that. I've
Oh
already
yeah,
self-confessed to being
going for the
burnt out.
tea. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah.
I get it. One of the things I was taught when I was much younger, I was getting involved in emergency response training. And one of the things it's like the first thing they teach you is that you can't be a first responder, you can't be an emergency responder if you hurt yourself on the way to get to whoever it is you're trying to help. If
Mhm.
you are doing wilderness first aid, if you're doing EMT work, anything like that, if you are hurt or you're injured or you're mentally unwell and you're trying to enter an emergency situation, you are going to be a problem. And you're going to cause two
Yes.
patients instead of one patient, and you're not going to actually make anything better. Um, and the first thing that you have to do is take care of yourself because only when you are in good, sound mind, body, spirit can you actually help somebody else. And I think that's really important also for writing or for approaching your job or anything where if you can't take care of yourself first,
Mhm.
nothing else is going to happen, especially not creatively. Like it's
Yeah,
so
that is true.
hard when
It
your
is.
body is falling apart, when your mind is falling apart, when you have no energy and you're sitting there going, "All right, time for me to write."
You absolutely will just be staring at a blank screen for like 2 hours.
And then like solitaire comes up and she's like, I can do this. And you're just trying to, because like that's where your brain is at. You're like, I can't write, but I can, like, and that's when the procrastination sets in because that's when you're like,
Mhm.
you can't focus and just like, well, I need to do something else. But you're not
Yes.
actually getting to what you need to get done. So yeah, it's super important to like make sure you're at a good spot and also that you're aware of what your limitations are and be like, you know what? Can't do it today, next week. This is not a today problem. This is a next week problem. I don't have, and again, that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with managing expectations and deadlines and
Yeah.
making sure that you're honest with yourself and others what your actual capabilities are.
hmm yeah, no, totally agree with that. And I am the worst at trying to keep up with everything and being like, yep, I'm burnt out and spiraling. But yeah, it is still going back to all of that. The communication is super important and just knowing yourself, knowing what you can handle. I think that's like something that people who are querying for the first time writers, seasoned authors, first time authors, like everybody can benefit from communicating with others and what they need from each other.
And also, if somebody does give you like a really snotty response, holding them accountable for,
Mhm.
all right, well,
Yep.
that was a really snotty response. I'm going to talk to your boss. I'm going to I'm going to talk to somebody else because your snotty response is not actually helping the situation.
Right.
Like they should not be treating you in that way. And having the self-respect to be able to say, okay, that person is wrong. I'm not
Mhm.
asking for something excessive or inappropriate, and being able
Mhm.
to advocate for yourself when others who should be doing it for you don't.
Yes.
Before I let you go today, I did want to ask you, is there anything else that you'd like to share or talk about, either for your book or your publishing journey or anything else that we haven't talked about yet that you'd like to say before we leave?
I just so a lot of in the divide that binds us, there is a lot of um mental health that is explored and talked about. And it's a piece of me in there as well. Some characters do really go through it. And I just hope that people do take care of themselves, as best as they can, whether they understand what they're feeling or not. It is something that I've been a big advocate for in terms of mental health because I've had terrible moments, and I know I write these characters and I will probably give them terrible moments because I'm having a bad day maybe, but I just hope that like anyone who is reading they can see a little bit of themselves and like that they're not alone in the process of trying to figure out what's going on in their head, and like there are people out there and that people do matter.
Thank you so much. That's a really beautiful way to end this. And I want to thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm absolutely looking forward to reading your book.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It was really nice.
Yes, thank you. See you later.
See ya.
Thank you so much once again to Michelle J. for taking part in this interview. Her book, The Divide That Binds Us, is out on the 16th of May. Check out the links below to learn more about her book and where to find her. If you're interested in more content like this, please hit the subscribe button. And as always, stay happy and healthy. Bye for now.